We want to call the prelude. Call of the worship. Come into God's presence.
All are welcome here.
Come, saints and sinners alike.
We are God's children.
Faith has brought us here.
Grace will make us whole.
Come, let us worship God. Our first hymn is number 262. God of the Ages.
Give us wisdom. Where there is sorrow and loss, bring us peace. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. If we say we have no sin, we deceive ourselves and the truth is not in us. But if we confess our sins, God, who is merciful and just, will cleanse us and redeem us, that we may begin our lives in you. Together, let us approach God with our prayer of confession. Loving God, we yearn to be as merciful with others as you are with us. Fill us with your grace, that we might have enough faith to work in your ways and to seek the healing of your world. Amen. By the grace of God, in the grace of Christ, and through the grace of the Holy Spirit, by reaching out in faith, we touch the presence of God. May we feel this touch and grace as we pass the peace of Christ today. Friends, we do this by extending our fingers upward and making a big circular motion, and that means peace. And then we do this symbol for Christ, which is Christ crucified, a finger to the crucifixion points, and then be with you all. So let's put that together. May the peace of Christ be with you. Amen.
Our first reading, Gospel, please listen to God's word. Comes from Matthew, chapter 9, 5 through 15, 18 through 16, or 26. As Jesus was walking along, he saw a man called Matthew sitting at the tax booth. And he said to him, "Follow me." And he got up and followed him. And as he sat at dinner in the house, many tax collectors and sinners came and were sitting with him and his disciples. When the Pharisees saw this, they said to his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" But when he heard this, he said, "Those who are well no need of a physician, but those who are sick. Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice, for I have come to call not the righteous, but the sinners." While he was saying these things to them, suddenly a leader of the synagogue came in and knelt before him, saying, "My daughter has just died, but come and lay your hands on her, and she will live." And Jesus got up and followed him with his disciples. Then suddenly a woman had been suffering from hemorrhages for 12 years, came up behind him and touched the fringe of his cloak. For she said to herself, "If I only touch his cloak, I will be made well." Jesus turned, and seeing her, he said, "Take heart, daughter, your faith has made you well." And instantly the woman was made well. When Jesus came to the leader's house and saw the flute players and the crowd making a commotion, he said, "Go away, for the girl is not dead but sleeping." And they all laughed. But when the crowd had been put outside, he went and took her hand, and the girl got up. And the report of this spread throughout that district. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Next is you. Oh, no, next we have
Listen up. Rejoice in the Lord, all you righteous, praise of the benefits of the upright.
Praise the Lord, make melody to the Lord, the harp with 10 strings.
String the Lord a new song. Play skillfully on the strings with loud shouts.
For the word of the Lord is upright, and all God's work is done in faithfulness.
The Lord loves righteousness and justice. The earth is full of his steadfast love of the Lord.
Like the word of the Lord that has made, and all their hosts by the breath of God's mouth.
God gathered the waters of the sea as in a bar. God put the deeps in storehouses.
Let all the earth fear the Lord. Let all the inhabitants of the world stand in awe of God.
For the Lord spoke, and it came to be.
The Lord commanded, and it stood firm.
The Lord brings the counsel of the nations to nothing. God frustrates the plans of the peoples.
The counsel of the Lord stands forever, the thoughts of God's heart to all generations.
Happy is the nation whose God is the Lord.
The people whom God has chosen as God's heritage. Oh, good.
There's a quiet understanding when we're gathered in the Spirit. It's a promise that He gives us when we gather in His name. There's a love we feel in Jesus. There's a manna that He feeds us. It's a promise that He gives us when we gather in His name. And we know when we're together, sharing love and understanding, that our brothers and our sisters feel the oneness that He brings. Thank you, Jesus, for the way you love and feed us, for the many ways you lead us. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord.
And invite young Christians to come forward for a moment together. Highland has changed since I've been here and since you've been here, or particular places in Highland have. Patrick, Your house has changed since I've been here because I visited in your home before you moved there and lived there. On Maple, what's it? On Maple Avenue, right. The previous family were Presbyterians, and so I saw it before it changed. But then when you guys moved in, you had to make it accommodate everybody in your family. It's nice for the old family, nice for the new family. And your house has changed. One time, Maggie, there was something we were doing here at the church, and I was hoping you could be here, but no, you were too busy because you and your dad were putting down new floors in your house, new floor for your bedroom. It changed. It changed over time. And that's what happens. Each time we occupy a space, the space is accommodated for us. Jesus tells us that one day, there'll be a room for us in heaven. Jesus says, in my God's house there are many rooms, and I go to prepare a place for you. So that means that how it is now is changing, getting ready for one day when we'll be there. And hopefully it's going to be a while. Hopefully it'll be 60, 70, 80 years from now for you guys. Yes, Earl? What is one thing that never changes? One thing that never changes. God is always there. Let us pray. Dear God, thank you for sharing your truth with Earl, with Maggie, with Patrick, with all of us. We rely on you, God, wherever we live, that you are always there. Amen.
Oh, for goodness sakes. You got a sense?
First, but ladies are late and second. Yeah, we don't want to let the ladies
Okay. Our next reading is the epistle. It comes to us from Romans, chapters 4, 13 through 25. For the promise that he would inherit the world did not come to Abraham or to his descendants through the law, but through the righteousness of faith. If it is the adherents of the law who are to be the heirs, faith is null and the promise is void. For the law brings wrath, but where there is not law, neither is there violation. For this reason, it depends on faith in order that the promise may rest on grace and be guaranteed to all his descendants, not only to the adherents of the law, but also to those who share the faith of Abraham. For he is the father of all of us, as it is written, I have made you the father of many nations. In the presence of God, in whom he believed, who gives life to the dead and calls for existence the things that do not exist, hoping against hope, he believed that he would become the father of many nations, according to what was said. So numerous shall your descendants be. He did not weaken in faith when he considered his own body, which was already as good as dead, for he was about 100 years old, or when he considered the barrenness of Sarah's womb. Not distrust made him waver concerning the promise of God, but he grew strong in his faith, and he gave glory to God, being fully convinced that God was able to do what he had promised. Therefore his faith was reckoned to him as righteousness. Now the words, it was reckoned to him, were written not for his sake, but alone, but for ours. It will be reckoned to us who believe in him, who raised Jesus our Lord from the dead, who was handed over the death of our trespasses, and was raised for our justification. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
And our lesson from the Hebrew Bible is is from Genesis, the 12th chapter. And if you're reading along, or if you listen closely, you'll see that I'm pronouncing the names of Abraham and Sarah differently. Abram and Sarai. The spelling of the names changes a few chapters later, and but it's the same people. And my sermon title that I submitted for the bulletin earlier this week was Share the Faith, but as I wrote it, it's now Go from Your Country. So listen now for God's word. Now the Lord said to Abram, Go from your country and from your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you I will curse, and in all the families of the earth, in you all shall be blessed. So Abram went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. And Abram took his wife Sarai and his brother's son Lot, and all the possessions that they had gathered, and the persons whom they had acquired in Haran, and they set forth to go to the land of Canaan. When they had come to the land of Canaan, Abram passed through the land to the place at Shechem, to the oak of Moreh. And at the time, the Canaanites were in the land. And then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, To your offspring I will give this land. So he built there an altar to the Lord who had appeared to him. And from there he moved on to the hill country on the east of Bethel. And there he pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. And there he built an altar to the Lord and invoked the name of the Lord. And Abram journeyed on by stages toward the Negev. Friends, this also is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So I need your help in beginning this sermon. I'm wondering how many people who are worshiping here today, and I think someone fits into each of these categories. How many people have only resided in Ulster County for your entire life? Nope, I'm wrong. So everyone has lived somewhere else other than in our county. How many people in church today have lived only in New York State? Show of hands. Okay, we have a few people. How many people have resided, had an address outside this country? Outside the United States. And so we have a few people here. And then I'm wondering, when you moved, so no one's lived in the place of their birth. When you moved, what were some of the reasons why? What prompted your moves? Work?
Or marriage.
Marriage?
We do hate that.
Work, marriage?
Parents work.
Parents' work?
College.
Okay. And that's what people do. Different life circumstances send us on our way. There are other reasons people move, and we're fortunate we didn't hear those in this mix. Political upheaval, persecution, hunger, safety. My former neighbors lived in a country in South America, and the gentleman there left that country to come here and has worked 3 jobs for a decade. He had a Coca-Cola distributorship in his previous nation. And I'm thinking, I'd love to have a Coca-Cola distributorship here. But there was so much graft, he never could keep profit, and his life was in jeopardy if he didn't turn over the bounty of that employment, of that ownership. But none of you have said that you moved to a new place because God told me to leave home and move to a different land. I mean, it might have happened. You might have felt like God was leading you to a new place. But no one said it when I said, why did you move? None of us were sent on the way, as were Abraham and Sarah. Now the Lord said to Abram, go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. And it was God who told a 75-year-old Abram to go from the land of Ur to the land of Canaan. And Abram's birthplace in Ur is what we now refer to as a location in southern Iraq. And Abram listened to God and traveled through the region that we now call Iraq, Syria, Israel, and during a time of famine he actually moved down to Egypt. This was an extraordinary journey that Abram launched when he was 75. I mean, at 75, most of us are just thinking about how we'll spend the last couple of decades of our lives. Hopefully, we're retired by then, unless you're the organist of the church. Then we don't want you to be retired. Abram was told to go from his father's country, and he did. God made good on a promise that was made to Abram and Sarah. God said, I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great so that you will be a blessing, and I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you I will curse, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. Abram trusted God. He moved. And in God his faith was founded. Abram was blessed. He had children. And a new people came from his son Isaac. From Isaac, we trace the lineage of the Jewish religion, and in Palestine, a nation known at various times as Canaan, Israel, and Judah. Ishmael actually was Abraham's firstborn son through his concubine Hagar. And through Ishmael, we trace the roots of Islam. By the grace of God, Abraham was able to establish a new home. Fortunately, most of us have been able to do the same. We left one home and established another. But realize not everyone is so blessed. Not all people have a roof over their heads upon which they may depend. Economic scarcity yields housing uncertainty. Not all people have potable water at the tap, if at all. Not all people have food when they are hungry. Think about the times we've sat down and there's been a huge table of food in front of us, and before we dig in, we say, oh, I'm starving. This is great. That which is a throwaway line for us is a reality for much of the world. Almost 1 billion people are starving. And 1/3 of the global population is food insecure. Rising sea levels are going to force hundreds of millions of people to relocate in this century. It's remarkable to think about what Patrick and Maggie and Earl are going to see in terms of shifting populations in their lifetime. And remember how in 2005, after Katrina, 1 million people, 1 million Americans had to relocate after that storm hit New Orleans and Louisiana. 1 million people immediately pushed from their homes internally in our country. People move. Like Abraham and Sarah, people pack up their possessions if they have any and if there is time, and they move. And astonishing it is to meet people who enter the United States with nothing more than a suitcase or the clothes on their backs. And most of us know someone like this, have met someone. But imagine what it is to arrive in a new land with only your life. Breathing is the only certainty. Without food and water, even the breath of life is imperiled. Almost all of us have been spared the hardship of existence. I mean, we've had hardship in our lives. We've had heartache, we've had challenges, we've had difficulties, we've had uncertainties. Our hearts and souls have been torn. But the notion of physical survival, most of us have been spared that terror of uncertainty. And yet, in each of our churches, each of these congregations that I serve, an essential relocation has been experienced by some of our folks who have worshiped in just my time here. The vulnerability of displacement is intensifying with the growth of population and with the depletion of resources. And we find ourselves at the crossroads of our humanity. How shall we respond to the need for survival? Not prosperity, but survival. Consider how odd it is, the entertainment options that are contrived in a way